great to have with us as well Executive Vice President Teresa Ribera, of course, our own President Nadia Calvino of the EIB Group. Welcome to the EIB Group's home in Brussels. I'm sure most of you have been here before, but if not, you're very welcome. Hope to see you again as well. We're kicking off a conversation this morning on making the green transition a European success. I think it was just over a week ago that the EIB board adopted the European Investment Bank Group's second phase of the Climate Bank Roadmap. And we're going to talk a bit about what that means and the extent to which it is aligned and supporting the delivery of the green transition. So we're very happy to have you both. We're going to dive straight in. And I'm going to start with you, President Calvino, if I may. Run us through some of the key elements of that second phase of the roadmap. And perhaps I'd ask you to reflect a bit on the significance of it in the context of today's very turbulent times.
Thank you very much for the organization. Thanks to all of you for coming. Thanks to my two dear vice presidents, Ambroise Fayolle and Nicolas Baer, that are joining us here. And of course, a warm welcome and thank you very much, my dear Teresa Ribera. We're so coordinated, we came in green, as you can see, which is already a message in itself, I would say. 2 points from my side by way of introduction. I think that in today's world, it's more important than ever that we join our forces to make the green transition a European success, and it is more meaningful than ever that the 27 member states unanimously endorsed the second phase of the Climate Bank Roadmap for the European Investment Bank. Because as you know, while some are pushing back, Europe is moving forward. And it is a no-brainer, really. We need to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. We need to reduce energy prices. We need to increase our competitiveness. And the green transition is driving all of these things. That is why in the second phase, building on the success of the first year of our roadmap, we're going to be focusing in those projects that contribute the most to Europe's competitiveness, security, technological leadership, and reducing energy prices for companies and families. We are going to double our finance for adaptation and prevention of the impact of climate change. And we're going to simplify our procedures so that we can reduce regulatory burdens, reporting burdens, and red tape for our clients. In a nutshell, that's what we are announcing today. And I am delighted that so many people have come and that there's so much interest in this very important roadmap.
Thank you, President. Teresa Ribera, tell us to what extent you think that the roadmap is going to help deliver the green transition, and how aligned is it with your own direction of travel?
Thank you. Thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. I think that it is very obvious that it helps into the main goals of this Commission. The President von der Leyen came out to the Parliament to say that the priorities were going to be competitiveness, security, and values, and this means green. This means accelerating the green transition, making it as simple as possible, but also as consistent as possible. We came up with a very strong message. We cannot think of competitiveness of our economy if we rely from outside resources as much as we have been doing for a very long time. So we need homegrown energy. We cannot be secure if we do not tackle the impacts of climate change in an anticipated manner, so to build resilience in our infrastructures, our cities, our people, our farming. And we cannot think out of values if we do not consider what it could mean in terms of social impacts and fairness and suffer. So yes, we need to come out with a great agenda that replies to the demands and expectations of the citizens, of the investors, of the industrials, and in general terms of the policy makers and the capacity of the institutions to tackle these great challenges. It is good to come up with these strategies. It is good to come with policy decisions, but it is very important to find ways, to find means to support what we say, to walk the path. And the manner we can do it together with the European Investment Bank is going to be crucial. Otherwise, it could be very difficult just on our own public funding solutions coming from the European budget or private decisions in terms of investors to cover the different means that could be necessary to put on the table. So de-risking, facilitating the blending finance, facilitating the consistency and the resilience, so the secure projects to be put forward is going to be key, and we are very happy to tackle mitigation and adaptation as main priorities of the green agenda in the European Investment Bank.
Thank you. And you mentioned, President, the word competitiveness, and that's obviously key. And some do feel, and there has been a pushback, inevitably, some do feel there is a tension between the ambitious climate goals of the EU, of the EIB as well, and economic competitiveness. How do you see that? Do you recognize a tension?
Not at all. And I would leave the floor to the Vice President, the Executive Vice President, to also elaborate on the actual examples that we have on the ground. But from the perspective of the European Investment Bank, when we say we will focus on competitiveness, security, technological leadership, reducing energy prices, what we're talking about is large investments in key infrastructures, grids, interconnectors, efficient and smart energy distribution. We're talking about investment in research and development of new green fuels. We're talking about energy efficiency for small and medium-sized companies. Actually, just some weeks ago, we announced a 17 billion euro program to support European SMEs, small and medium-sized companies, foster and invest in these green energy efficient techniques. We're talking about decarbonization of heavy industry. Just yesterday, I was in Lisbon. We have signed a groundbreaking deal to provide financing to a large paper and pulp manufacturer to find new techniques which reduce CO2 emissions. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about supporting power purchase agreements so that we can stabilize energy prices in the long term for large energy consumers. We're talking about supporting the European industrial capabilities in the areas of grid manufacturing components, wind turbine components. Actually, we have already had a resounding success, and we needed to top up the wind package to support this sector. This is competitiveness, you know, and this is what we're talking about, that we, from the public sector, we need to provide support to those sectors that are on the front line. Let me close with referring to one of those sectors. Vice President already mentioned it. Farming, agriculture, this is one of the sectors' activities that is key for our own food security, food quality, and our economies. And this is obviously one of the sectors that is most directly impacted by climate change. And that is why we're also paying a special attention to supporting the resilience, adaptation of the agriculture sector. All of these, I think all of these words mean green transition, and they mean competitiveness. So actually, I think that the European Investment Bank has a clear view that we need to make climate and competitiveness a winning tandem for Europe.
Do you see it in the same way? I mean, EVP, what's your take on this?
Of course, I see it not only the same way, but absolutely compatible. I think that the other way around would not work at all. Take the example of any of the topics and fields that the President Calvino has been mentioning: energy, industrial sites, technologies. In order to be competitive, we cannot rely on something we do not produce. So fossil fuels, we need to think differently, and the system, the energy system, need to be prepared for a different management. That means lots of investments taking place so to ensure that we can count on lower prices, on more secure availability of resources, and on modern ways to make efficient use of the energy. Take the industrial sites. Think about how we can produce in a better way, in a wiser manner, in a decarbonized way, so to ensure long-lasting profitability of the business community. We need to bet on how we can produce goods differently, how we can decarbonize the manner we produce these goods. And there we can play supporting the business community, so to ensure that the earlier decisions we make, the more opportunities we can get. The later decisions we take, the more harmful cost we will be facing, but the less opportunities we will be building. Take the issues dealing with resilient infrastructure, not only on the energy or industrial side. Think about water, water management, the whole industries around an efficient, smart use of clean water. We have these capacities in Europe, and it is something that is going to be demanded everywhere. But water will be tackled in a different context when thinking about climate change scenarios. So the earlier we invest in a different management of water, the earlier we identify industrial opportunities about water, the most secure context we will be building in the time to come. It's a little bit all around the different elements, including, by the way, the financial industry. The financial industry reducing the cost, risk, and liabilities. The financial industry building products that can help to take these opportunities, to seize these opportunities at an earlier moment. Mm-hmm. The financial industry providing solutions elsewhere, not only in Europe, but the European financial industry facilitating these patterns elsewhere, so coming along with the industrial and services industries from the European continent in many other places, in many other geographies, where they will be demanding similar results. So I think that, of course, it is full of competitiveness opportunities, and the lack of action could mean more burdens, more cost, more harm, and others taking the place we are in a position to take today.
Absolutely. And we'll come back to some of those reflections in a minute, actually, with our Vice President, the global application, the importance of water, and seizing these opportunities around the world. Let me come, though, to a topic that's been much discussed here in Brussels, actually over many years, but not necessarily in this context, which is the challenge of simplifying legislation, ensuring that what we do is workable. In this case, not so much legislation, but the financing, the mechanism by which we get the projects off the ground. What does that mean in the context of the Climate Bank Roadmap Phase 2, President Calvino?
I think that simplification is a key element here. And we've come a long way, because when we adopted the Climate Bank Roadmap first in 2019, of course, we didn't have a regulatory framework in Europe. Many of the rules were not there, the reporting requirements, whether it is for the financial industry that the Vice President was referring to, or generally for companies. But we've come a long way. So now we have a solid framework. So for us, simplification is really concretely translated into 3 principles. First, no gold plating. So we do not add regulatory requirements, we do not add rules to those that already exist. Secondly, reliance on existing reporting requirements. If companies have to produce a report, we rely on that report. We don't require yet another report on their, for example, roadmap towards decarbonization. And thirdly, more reliance on self-assessments. We have launched a very successful green checker, which allows companies to self-assess. Is this a green project? Is it not? This is instrumental, obviously, when we're talking about intermediated finance that goes through the banks. So what we want is that small and medium-sized companies have an easy way to have access to this finance all around Europe through these 3 elements, which are translating very realistically and tangibly the principles of simplification. I say tangibly because only yesterday we were discussing how to review our guidelines, and it means actually moving from hundreds of pages documents to 10-page documents, in some of the cases, so that we can try to have clearer, simpler rules, reducing the cost, reducing the burden, reducing red tape for companies and for administrations alike.
Thank you. Now, I know, Executive Vice President, you need to run away in a few minutes, but let me just put that question to you slightly differently in terms of what do you think are the most urgent regulatory incentives to actually stimulate investment and innovation, which in the end is what we need in this sector?
Allow me to respond in a very big picture. manner. Coherence and clarity. What I want to mean by this, yes, if we can do it simple, much better. If we can simplify, we have a chance to do it drawing from the experience how we can get the same goals in a much more simple manner. That is fantastic, that's good. That's what we have tried to do when government said to us, we want to come along with the companies, please allow us to learn how we can use state aid to support this transformation to make it happen quicker. We came up with this framework. At the very same time, we need to be clear on the sense of direction. No doubts, no pendular shifts. We know that if we go along some figures in terms of what is our ambition dealing with climate, that could mean not only not doing more, but undoing what we have already said we were going to do. So clarity on 2035, on 2040, so to trigger, to boost the investments and the transformation, the acceleration of our economy is absolutely key. And my third comment, let's try to build on the context that helps to enter into these opportunities and to avoid giving this lack of coherence in the messages. I think that there are many people willing to invest, many investors willing to invest there where we see that it makes sense. If we start doing things in such a way that we are not clear on what we want to achieve, how we can organize the context to facilitate through regulation, through de-risking, through a much more unified Europe that lifts the burdens and the borders that still exist, it could be much more costly, much more difficult, but we could be missing the opportunity to invest in our own future.
Absolutely. And of course, if one thing has happened, it's that Europe has emerged as a clear, confident, reliable partner, as we often say. Thank you so much for your time, Teresa Ribera. We will let you go because I know you've got to cross the road to talk, as we will later as well, in the Global Gateway conference being held now. But please do join me in thanking the Executive Vice President. Thank you. And